Hello, people. Like I was the Santa Claus, as I sounded. My name is Socrates Son, and today I will respond to this video. Jordan Peterson destroys atheism in 1 minute. And yes, this is a David Wood video, so everybody knows that I like David Wood. But let's do this, you know, let's see what's going to happen.
There are a lot of powerful arguments for atheism. For instance, there's the argument from... No, that's garbage. Well, atheists have an argument called... Gosh, that's even worse. No, that's just sad. You know, I simply can't think of any good arguments for atheism. But fortunately for us, someone who's way smarter than I am is on the case. Here's Dr. Jordan Peterson discussing arguments for atheism on Pints with Aquinas.
What do you think the best argument for atheism is?
I don't think there is a good argument for atheism.
See, now that's what I thought. Maybe I'm more smarter than I always thunk I was. There is no good argument for atheism.
I don't think there is a good argument for atheism. I think it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of the world. So it's just, it's what would you say? It's an illegal chess move.
It's an illegal chess move. What, you thought you could just take the king out of the game because you're an atheist and you don't know how to mate?
Socrates Son's probability argument. Premise 1. Something that cannot be potentially explained, it doesn't exist. Premise 2. God has no potential explanation. Conclusion, God doesn't exist. Everything in the natural world, in the physical world, can potentially be explained by other things. That seems to be the case for everything except fundamental realities, or essence, that the explanation lies in their inevitability. That is still an explanation. Some things are so fundamental that cannot have been any other way. But is God such a fundamental reality or essence? According to theology, he is. But theology is irrelevant. Theology is a claim, has no explanatory power. Whether God exists is a cosmological question. So now, in cosmology, how probable is a being with the characteristics and qualities of God existing inevitably without explanation? This is what we're going to investigate now. What is probable? Difficulty of the task divided by the means we have to achieve this task. Let's imagine our task is to send a man on the moon. That is a very difficult task. Isn't that right? So whole countries like Greece, although a modern country with many means, economical and technological, still it hasn't got the means to send a man on the moon. What if I diminish further the means? Let's say we ask this child to send a rocket to the moon. In his current circumstance. Now the task is very high, sending a man to the moon, and this child hasn't got the means to do this task. So it is very improbable. What if I was a trainer and my task was to defeat my athlete, to defeat Usain Bolt in 100 meters? Okay, that is a very difficult task. Usain Bolt is the fastest man alive. And I was given this athlete. What is the probability I will achieve this task? The probability is very low, exactly because the task is very high, and my athlete hasn't got the muscle power, the means to achieve this task. When it comes to God, God can do everything that can potentially be done, but at the same time, he cannot be undermined by any means other than his own nature. We cannot say God has big muscles. That's why he's done that. Because that implies that muscles are the reason he's doing this. Therefore, he's not God. We cannot say, for example, that God is using a magic wand to make things, because that undermines his of him being God. Then he's a magician. He's not God. Also, adding to that, at the same time, he needs to be this way forever without explanation. The probability of this description is quite literally the extreme end of improbability. In fact, that is as close as it can possibly get of a hypothesis to be impossible. That is what we humans describe as impossible. If I ask you to describe impossibility in another way, that is God. Okay, ask me. Socrates Son, describe impossibility in another way without using this word. I will say, impossibility is if I take a runner, I cut his feet, and I ask him to do eternal kilometers in 0 seconds. Yes, that is God. Okay. God is impossibility described in other words. Okay. He cannot be undermined by anything. He always existed, and he can do everything. Doing everything imply, unless he is magic, okay. So that's implies that he has some kind of structure to support his qualities. Okay. Empty space cannot do things. When you say a universe from nothing, that is impossible. Why are you saying that is impossible? Because nothing cannot create a universe. God is even worse than that. Because when Lawrence Krauss said a universe from nothing, he implied the cosmological nothing. He implied certain qualities that with evolution evolved to a complex thing. God is not even this. Okay, God needs to be always, without evolution, always, forever exist with these convenient qualities that can do everything from starters. Also, he is a being, okay, with outside of any environment. Okay, in other words, let me explain why that is difficult. Because what is God? God in the human mind is a human that can do everything. Okay. The problem with this description is that exactly because the human mind always goes to extremes, the human mind recognizes extremes because it's something to hold on. Okay, a human mind will never say God can do 5,532.333 of the things. No, he will say God can do everything. Okay, the human mind never invents and says God loves 99.7.5.7777777. No, he says God loves everything. That is how the human mind works. It recognizes the extremes. But the problem with that assumption, if you go always to the extreme positive, the extreme negative, the problem with that is that you make your claim improbable. Because zero compromise of structure, at the same time doing everything, at the same time existing forever, at the same time without explanation, at the same time, okay, all this, if you take them together, is the description of improbability. Okay, Jordan Peterson and David Wood defeat this argument. Okay.
But there's a problem with Dr. Peterson's response. The question wasn't, are there any good arguments for atheism? Of course there aren't. The question was, what's the best argument for atheism? Even if all the arguments for a terrible, absurd position are bad arguments, you can still point to the best of the bad arguments. So, what's the best of the bad arguments for atheism?
This might just show that I don't understand you, but we'll get to it if I don't.
The best argument for atheism.
What's the best of the worst arguments?
Materialistic determinism is the best argument for atheism.
But isn't...
What if I told you God exists only in my mind? Is he real? With a capital R. He exists only in my mind. Is he real? What if I invent right now a creature in my mind that is, let's say, like a spider with butterfly wings? Is this creature real with a capital R? For something to be real, it must exist in cosmology. What is cosmos? Cosmos comes from a Greek word and means everything that exists in reality. Let me repeat that. It's everything that exists, but in reality. Okay, the immaterial realm is not real with a capital R, unless it mirrors something in reality. For something to exist, it must have some kind of essence, no matter how counterintuitive is this essence. Immaterial are not essence. They are descriptions or mental pictures of essences. Okay, so now we need to redefine words because, anyway, why I'm saying that? Because let me conclude and we can discuss that. And logic just takes its scales from the ordered universe. So our mind mirrors the order in the universe. Okay. So it separates itself from chaos. So it has some kind of order. So logic, that is logic. Okay, again, it mirrors the order in the environment. The fundamental reality is in cosmology, in the realm of physics. That is the fundamental reality. In the God hypothesis, the fundamental reality is in the realm of metaphysics. But metaphysics are not explaining reality, although that is the popular definition. It says that metaphysics explain the fundamental reality of things. Okay. But in fact, metaphysics are not explaining reality with a capital R. They explain the nature of mental objects. The nature of the mind, let's say. Okay, what I'm saying now is a radical rethinking of philosophy. And it's only fair, me, Socrates Son, at 2024, correcting my ancestors, who were 300 BC, like Plato, for example. So what I'm saying now, I know I sound arrogant, and I wasn't going after to disprove Plato, but what I'm saying now, it explains reality better, and it solves many problems that with the other thinking they cannot solve. Like the problem I started. How you separate things that are real in my mind, in our mind, but are not real in reality.
Isn't that a philosophical sort of assumption or axiom?
That's a problem.
Yeah.
The best of the bad arguments for atheism, according to Jordan Peterson, is materialistic determinism. I'm not sure what he means by materialistic determinism. That would normally be the view that what happens in the material world is determined by matter and the laws of nature. That wouldn't mean that God doesn't exist. You can be a materialistic determinist about our universe and still believe that God exists. So I'll assume that he just means materialism. Materialism, in this sense, is the position that the material world is the fundamental reality. Everything that happens can ultimately be explained in terms of matter in motion. Now, if the material world is all there obviously can't be an immaterial deity. So if we assume that materialism is true, then God doesn't exist. But as Matt pointed out, that's an assumption.
But isn't that a philosophical sort of assumption or axiom?
That's a problem.
Yeah.
If you assume at the beginning that the material world is all that exists, and you conclude that God can't exist because you've already assumed that the material world is all that exists, that's begging the question.
Guys, I haven't seen this video, and you saw how on the target I was. Okay, that is throwing an arrow from here and hitting the target now in Australia. Okay, so from the I knew it was going there. So that's why I said, my friend, how did I start my my explanation, my rant before? I said, what if God exists only in my mind? Is he real? So, and then I went on and I said, for something to exist, must have some kind of essence, no matter how counterintuitive is this essence. Okay, it must separate itself from nothing and from chaos. God must separate himself from nothing and from chaos. It must have some kind of essence. But essences are not ideas. Why? For the reason I said. Because if you imagine something, it's not real. Hasn't got a real essence. Okay, so it has mental essence, but it's not. That's why we need to separate, to invent new words, to separate these things. So, exactly. So, but David Wood is right. In the God assumption, it's it's a worldview. Okay, we have two different worldviews. In the one worldview, natural reality are fundamental, are in the center, and in the other view, the material or the Platonic stuff are in the center. Yes, but how we solve this? Give me 5 minutes. I will figure this out. By the way, everything I said, although I have said it before, I think them on the spot right now. Please.
So, the best argument for atheism would be a fallacy. But our materialistic determinist friends can find comfort in the fact that, according to their worldview, if their reasoning is fallacious, they were determined to reason fallaciously. So, atheists, it's not your fault. The universe made you like this. But suppose what we really mean when we ask, what's the best argument for atheism, is, what's the most effective argument for atheism? What's the most effective argument for atheism?
David, you keep saying that, and Peterson keeps saying that. What I just described, the argument I just made, was right now, 3 minutes. Don't think it's these guys. These guys believe that atheists cannot find arguments. Are you serious, my friend? That was 3 minutes. Now, can give you another 10 if you like. Very strong. Just give me 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. I can give you another 10. There are very strong arguments for atheists. First of all, David Wood, you don't understand. Wait just a moment. Disproving God is difficult because the God claim is not defined. Now, look now what they are doing. They say, what is the best argument for atheism? Already we exclude all religions. Already you narrow the scope. If it was for a specific God, I would have made another argument, which is assassin immediately in the head and go home immediately. Okay, but now you narrow the scope and you said what is the best argument for God, not for religion. So already we went to days, which is more difficult. And then, by saying what is the best argument, we already excluded that the burden of proof. So I would have said the best argument for atheists is that there is no good evidence for God. And you make the positive claim. I don't need to do anything, in fact. I could have said this, but I knew that this will annoy Face. That's why I didn't do. And I went directly to arguments, positive arguments. And even that, which is more difficult, I can still give you another 5, let's say. So, okay.
Here, the answer isn't really an argument. It's not a fallacy. It's a manipulation tactic. Join our group and you're smart. Don't join our group and you're dumb. Atheists smart. Religious people dumb. Us smart. Them dumb. Them no smart. We smart. Them dumb.
Although what you are saying now is true for the old time, 10 years ago, that atheists, had this kind of attitude. But 10 years ago, my friend, they were dealing with dumb arguments. 10 years ago, they were dealing with dumb arguments. But now, my friend, as you made a video about this, you saw Richard Dawkins, how modest he was. He said, I'm a cultural Christian. But he also said that there are religion is dumb. So, okay, I give you this point. But what I'm trying to say is that atheists are not trying to proselytize anyone. And as we speak now, atheists stop being militant, too militant. Atheists is the only group that doesn't speak. They support you, Christian. You have the apostate prophet sitting there and listening what you said and agreed. I love Bob the Builder. I say he's the best debater I have ever seen. Sam Samoon, great Christian Prince, inspiring philosophy. People ask me, who is... okay, when I talk to Christians, okay, and usually I defeat them in arguments because because I do that. I have seen many videos and debates. Okay, I'm talking now to random Christians, okay? Okay, and I defeat them in arguments, and when I finish, I tell them, don't think that there are not good arguments for God. If you want to make good arguments for God, go and see inspiring philosophy. I propose to people to go to see Christian channels. Okay, so that is the attitude of atheists in the current day. Did you see any militant atheists? There are, of course. But what I'm trying to say, the atheists in the current day are the most modest. Why all the... And I was going to say something else. Okay, I don't remember. Please.
If you can convince people that they magically become the champions of some prized virtue just by joining your group and running around screaming, "Sky Daddy, Sky 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 Daddy," you're going to win a lot of converts. That's why atheism took off in the early 2000s. A bunch of gullible young people boarded the good ship Cheap Ego Boost on a one-way trip to Fantasyland. But let's invite them to Planet Reality for a moment. Falling for low-level manipulation tactics and the fallacies you'd hear about on day one of a logic class doesn't mean you're smart.
Okay, guys, to conclude, in my mind, there is no, although I used to be a militant atheist, I used to be passionate to defeat the Christians. But, and then I admit that the arguments, okay, so David Wood is right. Okay, the arguments people like in the Atheist Experience were doing, or even Christopher Hitchens, who I love. Okay, Christopher Hitchens is brilliant. But when it comes to philosophy, okay, so as time advances, we are all humans, okay, and we think the arguments and we find solutions, okay. So when Christopher Hitchens was saying his arguments, Christians were not yet evolved to deal with his arguments. Okay, now, of course, Christians like David Wood and inspiring philosophy and so on, even Muslim thinkers, with the new arguments which are philosophical, okay, now they can defeat the type of arguments Christopher Hitchens used to make. Because now they are trained in philosophy. Philosophy is very powerful, guys. Okay, so so in that sense, David Wood was right. But what he's not telling you is that in those days, the atheist arguments were superior. Now, the Christians' arguments are superior, with the exception of me. Okay, but but at some point, people will evolve, and maybe atheists will pass Christians again. And then again, that will push the the Christians to find the answers for these arguments, and this is how the world advances. That is why it's very important to have free speech and free conscience, free conscience, and a free intellectual environment, because that is how humanity advances. But that's why I always said the distinction is not theist against atheists, is in fact skeptics against dogmatics. Okay. If you are a skeptic, you are in the right side, whether you are Christian, atheist, Muslim. Okay, and what I've noticed, guys, is that this kind of debate help, and the new atheist movement help very much to advance thinking and to make this kind of intellectualism cool. Before the new atheist movement, this kind of debate was not it was not cool. Okay, but now we see everywhere Muslims, Christians, atheists, and they got in this wagon because of people like Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins. Okay, so the atheist movement was a positive movement in this world, undeniably. Thank you very much.